everybody, I'm Cinnamon Cooney, your Art Sherpa, and today I'm going to show you how you can create for yourself at home, step by step, this wonderful abstract fantasy art piece. This is a really friendly painting for beginners. I'm going to break down every technique, color mix, and everything I'm doing step by step. We're going to have a free mini book that comes with that you can go download if you like written out instructions that will match that. These are time-stamped, they're chapter marked. We got all the things to make your experience easier. On the mic is my husband, John.
Hello.
So what he's going to be doing besides talking in the video is he makes sure to ask questions that you guys might be asking at home. He also makes sure that the camera's pointing at what I'm doing and that also I think about what I'm teaching. So that's just another thing that keeps me on track, because the whole point of this is to help this create this for yourself. Now, I definitely want you to take a creative leap with me. Get your paint, get your brushes, come back, because we can do this together right now, for real. So now that you've met John and I, and you know that we're going to learn like an artist by taking a creative leap, let's talk about what we're using today. We're using a 9x12 surface to paint on. This is a canvas. I have the colors phthalo blue, dioxazine purple, quinacridone magenta, ultramarine blue. This is quinacridone pink. You could use opera pink. You could use any bright pink that you like. This is sort of a free expression area. I have cad yellow medium, Mars black, and titanium white. Hey! You're going to see black, but don't use any black. I didn't use any black, but I didn't know it till the end. And so I'm telling you at the beginning, we don't use black. Just ignore it. It's not on the canvas. I mean, it's on the palette, but you don't use it. Okay? Just the purple. Now, I mentioned at the beginning that we're going to take the leap. And this is a way to learn like an artist. So the first part of it is we're going to listen to ourselves, right? The world is very noisy. And painting time is about listening to yourself first, and really paying attention to the dialogue you have in your head. I want you to empathize with yourself, right? That's the E in take a leap. Don't you agree, John?
Yeah.
So when you empathize with yourself, you have compassion for where you're at right now, right? So if it's hard to paint, you have compassion for that. If you're struggling with a technique, you have compassion for that. A is accept. So accept that the skills that you have today, today's painting, is perfectly okay. You don't worry about the painting you're trying to do or paintings you have done. You accept that, and that goes into being present, right? Because sometimes we past think and we future think. Just be in this moment right now. Don't worry about what people will say. Don't think about a lot of other things. Just be present into the painting. And then the most important part, paint. You got to paint. That helps the painting. So we know the colors. We know the canvas. I say we come back and jump right into step one. Now, because we have bright and very dark areas of this canvas, we're going to sketch in just a couple of the anchoring lines, and that will help us know where things are, and that way we have an easy time keeping colors bright. Because if I paint the whole canvas dark, which is fun to do, I do that sometimes, then I would have to come back and paint it with a light color to get it back. So instead, I'm going to take, this is a number 4 Isabey Isacryl filbert. Just means it's rounded. You could use any brush you have. And I'll go ahead and be brave and use my Docs purple. What do you think of that, John?
I think it's a good idea.
It's a good idea? We're going to find out. All right. I think to get my line in, I'm going to come up here on the left-hand side, a good bit in from the center, and I'm going to just do a sweeping line down and out. All right. Now I can adjust or shift this a little bit in the painting. It's just I want to have a nice motion to it. I'm going to also come here, maybe a little bit open, and let's do this one lower. Isn't that nice? Yeah. Just a little bit lower. So we have kind of the implication of a heart. Looking at that overhead to help you guys orient yourself. That's good. Now let's come down here.
It's odd to draw a foreshortened heart in a foreshortened shot.
Well, it's not foreshortened. It is distorted.
Or distorted, but so it's a distorted heart in a foreshortened shot.
Right, exactly. It would be very confusing visually, so I'm glad you went overhead. All right, I'm going to bring this line down a little bit longer. Now this kind of helps me, and I might tell myself that there's a little bit of an outer area here and a little bit of an area here, giving myself some lines to let me know that this is sort of artful here and artful here, which sort of means we're not going to be very precise with exactly where that dark line is and the new brighter color is. And that's really sort of all we need to do to sketch this in. If you're using a traceable, you're welcome to put in every line in the traceable. But I would actually try to keep it simple so that you have an easy time painting it in. Are you guys doing okay? Take a deep breath in, let it out. When we come back, I'm going to show you the next step. So I want a very soft and diffused blended effect, and I'm going to grab a 1-inch oval mop. This is the Princeton Select. Any oval mop that's synthetic will work. Could be a little bigger, could be a little smaller. On a smaller canvas, it's probably better to go smaller so you have easy control. And I'm going to begin with just my phthalo blue and a little bit of white. I'm going to come here and start to paint this in. Now I might need to get glazing medium in if it's not covering well. Or blending well, but right now I think I can just start with this. As I come up to the top of the heart, I can start to darken it and pull it around. And you'll notice that I'm not too worried about everything being perfect.
You know, I can see a question in chat right now. What's the difference between glazing medium and blending medium?
Oh, glazing medium dries very quickly. A blending medium doesn't dry very quickly. And this particular glass glazing liquid does both. It's the only one I know that does both well. You know, so, and John's messing with you on the chat. I know that.
I can
John
see
just
it
psychically
now.
knows it's coming. I'm adding white to my blue, and you'll notice that I'm very loose with how I'm brushing this. This is a very winsome, whimsical kind of little space. I can go more into blues as I'm coming up. I dip in the water lightly and kind of offload a bit into my paper towel so I'm not carrying too much water on my brush. I use a soft pressure to continue to blend. I can even come into the purple up here from my phthalo blue. Kind of arc that over and back in. Blend into here. Back into my white. Just loose, right? How this works for me is that my paint is still wet. My brush is soft. My water load isn't too heavy, but it's not too dry. Doesn't that sound fun? Not too heavy, not too dry. That's not specific at all, right?
Yeah.
But what you do see me doing is going into my water cup, lightly loading up water, very damp, and then offloading excess onto my paper towel. Again, we're just doing that first layer. It doesn't have to be perfect. I am going to rinse this brush out thoroughly, right? Because I don't want to carry pigment with it. And the next one, you can either have another brush or you can rinse this one out. I'm going to take it and just very carefully, while the paint is still a little bit wet and it's just damp, sort of blend this out. Can you see how that's working? So you could do 2 brushes, 1 brush. It just has to be clean and all the water removed from it. Either one.
That totally makes sense.
Does it make sense? I felt like for a second there it didn't make sense. I think what I'm saying is you can have 2 of these or 1 clean one.
Sometimes I have to give you some positive affirmation, otherwise you spit out like, I don't know if I'm making sense.
I don't know, man. But you got to tell me if I'm not. All right,
yes,
when we come back, we're going to do the next layer. So on this step, I'm going to kind of start to talk about the pink or the violet in the center, but it's going to bias pink. I'm going to take my clean but damp brush and load up a little bit of my ultramarine blue and my quinacridone magenta. You'll notice that it's biased a little bit to the magenta. That means just the mix goes more towards the pink, you know, then the blue. Lightly through there. And I'm going to go ahead and just start working that out. And working that out just means I'm going to start putting paint down, because sometimes in a painting, there's just a certain amount of paint down we've got to get done.
So working that out is just working the paint out onto the surface.
Working that paint out onto the surface, what I'm doing. It's not perfect. Look how at this stage it's kind of messy.
It is very messy.
It's kind of messy, and that's okay.
Painterly sometimes, as it is now.
Right, exactly.
This is
A little bit of white into that pink, just kind of blending it out. Just making sure it's not too stiff into one color. We've got another layer to do, so we've got some room. This is just getting this down enough to work. Once I have that in, we'll come back and we'll do the dark outer layer of the surface. So for the next part to work, I'm going to put a dark outer surface. I'm not going to use black. But I'm going to use this purple at a very deep value, probably a couple layers at the least. Now, when we're in here and we talked about leap, some things I want to talk to you about as we paint is the idea of listening to yourself, what that means. Sometimes that means trusting your instincts and not letting the outside world direct what you do. Sometimes it means that. Sometimes it also means paying attention to the way that you're speaking to yourself inside your head.
That's important.
It really is, because we can be bullies to ourselves, especially I talk about this a bit. I struggle a little bit with, well, a lot with anxiety and sometimes depression. And it can be very hard to catch that negative self-talk.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, especially in the day-to-day, doing groceries, driving the car, getting the Starbucks, all the things, laundry, all the minutia, kids, all of that, pets, just whatever you have going on in your life. Sometimes it's hard to just kind of quiet down and hear that inner talk. So when you're taking that creative leap and you're learning like an artist, be sure that you start listening to what you're saying to yourself in this moment, and make sure you're speaking to yourself like you're a friend and not like you're a friend of me. Or an outright, kind of hater in your world. You don't want to do that, do you? You don't want to be hateful to yourself. You want to be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
All right. Now, for the next layer, I do want the canvas to be entirely dry. I'm going to use a hair dryer. At this stage, you could let it dry naturally at home. If you're here for the premiere and you're live chatting and you're painting along, it's okay to hit the pause button. The chat will keep going, and your video will just pace along with you. So whenever you're watching, if I'm going too fast, just hit that pause button, right? That could be another P, pause, take a pause, be present, right? So if you need to stop, stop. When come back, let's have that canvas dry. So we get to go into some more whimsical detail. I am going to put out my gloss glazing liquid by Golden Artist Colors. You don't have to use this, though it can be very, I always let that thing plug up. It can be very useful because it does allow you to glaze and it does slow down drying time. It looks white on my palette, but it's not, it's clear. If you don't have this, just paint along with what you have and allow the colors to naturally sort of be transparent. Another thing, if you don't have a tool, like you don't have a mop brush, you don't like a mop brush, go ahead and just use what you have. Right? So we can talk a little bit about the empathizing with yourself. Use what you have. Yeah. Don't beat yourself up because you don't have all the tools and stuff. If you paint like an artist. Take advantage of what's currently in your art bucket. Every tool has promise in it.
And it's okay if it's not exactly the same as this.
Super okay. I think I'm going to begin with one of my favorites. This is a number 6 Artini brush. It's made with hog bristles and it's by Raphael. And I'm going to come here and start sort of working the more interesting, almost stained glassy effect. I'm going to go ahead and get some white on my brush and maybe a smidge of yellow. Ooh, I know.
Mm-hmm.
A little glazing medium into it. I'll come in here. A little more blue. I think it's sort of nice to just really play with this. Because this is almost abstract, the way you paint it can really be up to you. There isn't a correlation of something hyper realistic in your world, probably, that you have to contend with.
No, I don't.
You just kind
I
of
guess if you
scumble that
lived
out.
near the MoMA, that might be true, but
Oh, I doubt anything like this in the MoMA.
no, just
I
have to
disbelieve
contend.
the MoMA is like full of this, but I find this fun. I don't paint to impress fine art circles,
No, I'm just saying that,
which is good because they're not impressed. It's okay. But I do paint for personal enjoyment and things and images that please me.
and that's why you should, because as you say, in your daily life, that doesn't happen very often unless you're in the MoMA. And then it should, because if you're in the MoMA, like there's all sorts of stuff. But I mean, like you should paint more of this stuff to have more.
If you're
of
not
it.
familiar with that term, it's the Museum of Modern Art. Sometimes we say words and then we just assume everybody everywhere knows them, but you might not.
No,
It's a museum
it's a
here.
famous museum in New York where they have all of these really modern pieces of artwork that you would see that are and a lot of them are conceptual.
I'm going to interrupt John here for a second. I'm adding dark blue to the outer edge. Okay, back to telling them about the MoMA.
It's a cool museum.
It's a cool museum
That you should check out.
I'm trying to create sort of a light area in the center here and then a little bit of depth on the outside. Not completely rigidly by any means. That got a little darker on me than I would want, so I'm probably going to blend that out. And to do that, I'll just get back into my light color. And then I'm light with the brush. This works because the paint I'm painting into is wet.
Mm.
This is one of those ones where you can really just listen to the sound of the brush on the canvas. Yeah, and it means a lot. Now I'm going to come get a little of my purple on my brush and come here and kind of maybe come from the outside edge. Kind of dust a little bit of purple in. See how we're doing? And then I'm going to get a little more blue going. It'll be a darker hue. I haven't put any of the dark veining in. There'll be some more shading once the dark veining goes in. But I find it helps to get some of the, deep work done first.
Yeah.
And then you kind of detail out those little moments. I just took purple and I'm kind of just blending along here. As you do.
I'm impressed with your blending.
It's just because the paint is wet and the brush be fluffy.
Is that the secret to the blend?
May your paint be wet and your brush be fluffy.
And there's not like a water balance trick?
There isn't a ton of water on the brush, but it's not dry either. Right? So you can see that it's not dripping, but it's got enough dampness in it to move paint. And then the glazing medium also kind of operates in that space as a wetting agent.
Mm.
So it can be helpful too. I'm liking this. I'm enjoying this process. This is the process. Let's get some more of this purple over here. A little blue and purple. That's the phthalo blue and the Dox purple. Ultramarine blue and Dox purple mixes completely different because they're both red biased. So when you play with these different color mixes, you do get different results. And that's how, even though something can be kind of very light like this. Now here I'm going to go ahead and I want to find a way to kind of work these two together, and then I'm going to use another value to separate them out. So I'm bringing this lighter purple and joining some of the shape here, and then playing with that value. I'm also going to start playing with brush directionality. The brush stroke is curving here and curving in using that glazing medium. That does help me for something like this. That's a nice tool to invest in.
Yeah.
This particular one is my favorite gloss glazing liquid. I think there are some. What you're looking for is the word slow drying extender for acrylic colors. If it says those things, if it says it slows down the drying time and extends it, you're probably pretty safe that the product will do something different. Similar. It's the same.
Right.
But I say crazy things. I'm going to brush in some of the dark purple now, kind of creating some directionality. The other nice thing about this is if your paint has dried, sometimes it will let you kind of create another blender transition as well. And in acrylic, it can be hard to create those once your paint has dried.
Yeah, it's talk about it's more about layers, huh?
Yeah, it can really help you in those moments still get to your goals. There's a purple. We're doing a lot right here. I'm going to call this a step so we don't get overwhelmed by any particular part of this project, because there's a lot going on. Even though it's in some ways very simple, there's a lot going on. So let's take this in. You catch up with where I am. Again, pause me if you need to pause me. It's okay. I won't be offended. And we come back, we're going to do the next step. So I'm going to continue to work the patterning. It's almost like a leaf or a butterfly wing. Over here, I'm going to get a little of my Quinn into my brush and a little ultramarine blue. And I'm going to start to kind of define how this intersects. Got a little purple in there. I can also do quite a lot of trimming on it with the outer dark color. So I have a little forgiveness here if I need it. You can go ahead and put a little ultramarine blue over into here. You can just hear the brush kind of working.
Yeah, it's quite nice. I was actually just listening to it, trying not to disturb.
It's just kind of lovely to listen to, isn't it? Now I'm going to go ahead and take some dark purple, and I'll start thinking about maybe the inner heart cavern. It's just the beginning. We're just thinking about it. You know, every time you do this, it might be a little bit different. And that's okay, guys.
That's almost how it should be.
It's always how it should be. And that's part of the accepting, right? If, you're painting and it deviates a little bit from your reference or an idea you have in your head, That's okay. Things are not ruined. They're not bad.
We have this tool called a photocopier. It does an awesome job of making replicas. We
Well,
don't
but
need those. We need people to make unique versions.
yeah. Yeah, it's just you are always more valuable, in what you're doing.
Your take on something tells us more about the world.
Just coming down here, kind of blending that down in. So you can see we're starting to create we had a little power flicker during filming, but I'm sure John caught it in the edit
Mm-hmm.
because he's a genius. And we're just going to continue on. What do y'all think of that? I'm going to get a little of my pink here and my white. My brush was a little bit wet, so I am wiping it off on a paper towel. That's what I might do if I feel like my brush is a little too wet. I'm going to come here and kind of improve the shape of this a bit. Fun to do with the pink here. Even more pink, it's sort of fun. We'll pulled in, just kind of thickening that out. Maybe in the pink and purple over here. You see, I'm just kind of working all the colors that I have, and because they're all harmonies. One of my tricks for painting with kids is I only put harmonies out on the palette, so if they mix everything together, they at least get a nice color out of it. And we can do that for ourselves. Those are colors, if you never heard of color harmonies, those are just colors that are close to each other on the color wheel. And so therefore, they make nice mixes that don't gray out.
And do you have any more videos on colors that they could...
I have so many videos on colors, and they're free.
Where would they find them?
You would find them on the YouTube channel. We have playlists. I did a really great beginner acrylic painting class to sort of catch everybody up on everything they needed to know. I'm kind of lightening it out through here. And it has a lot of great color stuff. And I have playlists that are just about color mixing, color theory, and have lots of wonderful videos.
Like the split color wheel. What is it?
Yes, it's the split palette color wheel.
Yeah.
So when you, well, you should watch the video.
Yeah, go watch the video. It's super cool. Then you'll come back and be like, it is cool. But I understand why you couldn't explain it like in one.
I can, but then we're doing that the whole video because that's why it was his own video. I'm adding a little more white and blue now. And see, I'm just kind of making sure that I create some very nice moody color variants.
Moody.
Yeah, I like it to be moody. Let's get some ultramarine blue and purple together. You know what, might actually even kind of arc this out here. So I'm going to take some dark purple, and I think a nice line might be that there. So that kind of curves out. And then I can curve this in, and that can curve like that. That's nice. I like that. So I'm just kind of refining shape there. And I'll do that when I'm painting because I'm listening to myself. And that's part of what you do as an artist, is you listen to yourself. If something on the painting is speaking to you, listen to it. And yes, sometimes the canvas does talk. It's a interesting thing. It's a very whispery thing, but it definitely has an opinion. I think sometimes my canvas shouts at me, though. I'm taking a little bit of white and quinacridone, and again, just sort of blending around here. Making sure that it's interesting. Interesting. A little white on here. Kind of curving those brush strokes around, blending on the toe. So it's just adding that more depth into the color. I can always, if my paint is still wet, come in and sort of blend a little bit with the soft brush. Just kind of give it a little bit of a blended effect. That will work. And I even have a dome blender that works really, really well. Now, I do want the canvas to be dry before we come back. We're going to put some structure lines and then play with how those relate to the values in here. So dry your canvas thoroughly, hair dryer or air dry. And when we come back, I'll show you the next part of this fun project. So we're back, right? And we're going to be going on. I want you, though, to pay attention to this moment. This canvas is not perfect. It does not look like the finished project. It's kind of in an awkward stage, right? It's like a gangly little coat. It's adorable, but it's in an awkward stage. So we're going to have to continue allowing it to develop. I'm going to use my filbert again, my number 4 Isabey Isacryl. You could use any brush. You could use a round brush. It's not important, just one that gives you control. I'm going to come here on the inside of this heart and add kind of a nice clear line. And I'll go ahead and curl that down. That crisp line is important. I'm going to go ahead and add some crisp lines here. Just sort of brush this in. All right, so I just pull the paint down and sort of let it blend because it is in and of itself almost a glaze. In other words, it's a little bit transparent when you thin it out, even without the glazing medium. But I can use some.
That makes sense.
And continue to blend. I'm going to bring a line in and drop it. See how it's kind of like a curvilinear line? When it tapers at the end. These will feel a bit like organic matter, like maybe roots. Or I imagine that they feel like roots to me. And just coming along the edge of the brush. I'm just using the sharpness of the brush. I'm thinning the paint enough where it can really shine. And I'm just trying to follow the lines that I imagine in my mind would be.
You're turning the brush as you do that.
Yes, I do. I turn the brush to get these little S curves. We're turning the brush. Come around here. It's just a process. It's thoughtful-ish.
No, I can see it. Just kind of work a little.
Kind of bring that around there.
It's interesting how painting forces you to sort of listen to yourself while you're painting.
It does. You do have to listen to yourself, and you have to sometimes be still. Even I am when I'm teaching.
Or you have to listen to your husband.
I'm joining those two areas with that line.
Heckle you.
I'm bringing it around.
There's options.
There's always options. I'm going to come around and kind of pull a line down like that. That's very nice and organic. You just got to flow with it. Your lines don't have to be exactly as my lines are. to thicken it, thin it here. It can be a little different. And if you have a line get away from you, remember we're going to come back and paint things here inside. So you're going to have a chance to change things, design things, alter things as you see fit. That's okay. It's your canvas.
Yeah. Looking for the deeper meaning of the lines.
I am sometimes looking for the deeper meaning of the lines. Look glaze here. I'm wiping off my brush and just coming in with some glaze just to help it kind of blend. And I may come back with some blue in a minute, but I do want some depth through here on this side. You know, I can always come back with blue, and I can always come back with other fine lines. I'm going to rinse this for a second, and let's just grab a brush that will paint the area easily. I think I got a slightly bigger filbert, so it won't take me so long. And this is a number 8 Simply Simmons filbert. If you're looking for a good economical brush, that's a very good economical brush for the money.
It swooshes well.
It swooshes very well, right? I think it swooshes very, very well. And just paint this whole outer edge another layer of this dark, dark color. So the Doc's purple almost becomes a black. And then you're like, what's the black for? I pulled it aside just in case I needed it for veins or lining in some of the heart.
Ah, so that
if the purple wasn't registering enough.
So that can push those even farther back.
If it needs to be, yeah. I put a little more paint out on my palette than you guys at all need to have out. You don't need this much paint out on your palette at all. We just need you to be able to see things on camera.
And you had to work that out sometimes. You might need a little bit more here.
Yeah. So you might need more, you might need less. Hard to say. All right, this is a good time to change your water. Your water should be fairly dirty by now. And so what you're going to want to do is dry your canvas thoroughly, change your water, and when we come back, we're going to continue on with some more detail and blending and artful elements in this. So now I want to kind of continue to push the shape and form and the subtle little lights and values. I'm going to use a really cool tool. This is a Princeton Select Round Blender. I have a grip of these. They're just a dome blender. This particular mix is camel. You can kind of see when you have them for a while, they really round down. And I sort of go through all 3 stages, but it's the exact same brush. It's just the same brush in different variances of when I purchased it.
Different stages of its existence.
Different stages of its existence. I'm going to come here and kind of maybe get into a little bit of my pink and ultramarine blue here, kind of creating an unusual purple. And I'm going to go ahead and softly, as you can see, create some tonality. Come back with maybe a little bit of the magenta. Right around that little vein, and I'll come in here. You know, and it's just about kind of coming through and finding those little moments. Maybe a little more blue here. Like to get a little glazy medium in here sometimes too, to just sort of help it flow. The glazy medium can slow down the drying time of your paint. So if you're used to your acrylic drying really fast and you're calculating based on that, that might be a surprise. Kind of coming in and just sort of blending that out, right?
Yeah.
This brush is soft, the glazing medium. It really helps me get some nice effects here.
Soft blends.
Soft blends. These are tools that can really help you if you've been struggling with the soft blends. Bring some purple through here and kind of transition it. Or rinse out some. I like how it's starting to pull together.
Yeah, me too.
Lightening it up through here. I'm going to take a little of my blue and yellow, go really turquoise, kind of to the outside edge. That does get very turquoise. So that's the phthalo blue and the cad yellow. And then if I want it to go lighter, I just add a little white in there. And see if I come back into the quinacridone, it will blend right there beautifully. I feel.
I think so too.
Grabbed a little bit of white and it was a little bit strong, so I grabbed some blending medium and I blend it down. Push that up. This is sort of like painting butterfly wings. So, I try to think of it in those terms. I get a little more purple on it. Kind of allow the shading to transition into this side. Maybe a little more into the phthalo blue here. Rinse out. It's looking really good.
Yeah, it really is.
It's wild how it starts to go.
Get some dimension.
It gives you some dimension. Now I'm going to put that aside and I'm going to grab, I think, my #1 monogram liner. And for the bottom, I'm going to use purple. I'm going to take water to my purple and sort of thin it out. I'm going to make a series of fine hair-like lines. Come from the bottom up and join. Your lines don't have to be exactly like mine. That's not necessary. What you just kind of want to try for is the effect, perhaps. Kind of join those little lines in together. So see how we're making them kind of root-like?
Mm-hmm.
That's sort of fun. Sometimes they come in and they join up, and sometimes they curve to the same place, and it's okay where they go. Everywhere they go is fine. To create some sort of artful lines down here. And these will be a little more like calligraphy.
Oh, yeah.
Just creating that feeling of roots. This certainly came from a weird place in my life at a weird time.
Yeah.
And so I think in everything, you know, we always...
It's a really interesting colors.
Well, these are some of my very favorite colors. I could do a whole series on these.
Mm-hmm.
Like I could do whole runs of paintings just in this color scheme because I like them so much.
Yeah, me too.
I'm just trying to make sure that as we go through here, that these lines are organic is really the big thing about them, I think.
How do you make sure they stay that organic?
Messy, curvy. Messy and curvy. Things that are man-made are orderly and often make geometric shapes.
Patterns.
Yeah. And patterns, repeated patterns. Things in nature may have pattern, but a lot of times their pattern is about obscuring what you can see with visual confusion. Like think of tiger stripes. So even though the tiger stripes is a pattern, it's kind of a messy pattern. No two tiger stripes are the same. It's more of a style of striping than a particular singular stripe. And this is involved, right? Like when you're doing this, this is a busy time. It's busy work. But that's okay. Don't mind the busy work. Or maybe you do. I don't know. I like this. This is where you get to be present. Be now in this painting. Be in this line. Right? So when we're taking the leap and we're learning like artists, right? And we've listened and we've empathized and we've accepted. Now we need to be present. So sometimes that's why in portions of the painting, I will get quiet because I'm trying to be present, even though I got to be teaching. So I'm just keeping those lines thin. Number one liner from Princeton does a really, really good job.
Looks like it does.
So I kind of did those edges there. That's root-like.
It's very root-like.
Just about building that up. Takes a minute. Lots of details. Lots of little moments. Some lines thinner and thicker. Some lines, really strong. When I have the lines in, some of the things that I might want to do is I might want to come in and say mix a strong turquoise color, right?
Right.
And then paint in some of the spaces that I've made. It won't all be turquoise, it's just something that we can do, right?
Mm-hmm.
creating some different look glaze there. Maybe a lot more white. Different values. So this is much lighter. See how that creates visual interest, I feel.
Yeah, it does.
Just add some purple in. And just playing. You got to play with the space.
Mm-hmm.
That's the listen. You know, look for places in the painting that need a little extra attention. You can put as much or as little in this as you feel is necessary. That's up to you. How much do you want to put into that?
It's really an open-ended question.
It really is. It really is. Let's call this a step because that was a lot to take in, like a lot. And when we come back, we will persevere on. Now, sometimes as a strategy, I will move around a painting and work different areas. Like I could stay down here until it was all done, but by going through different areas, it keeps me from getting mentally fatigued, right? However, you generally paint 2 to 3 times longer than I do for the lesson when you're following along at home. That's for everybody. That's even for me because when you're following a lesson, it takes longer.
Yeah, you have to stop and rewind and listen.
So be sure that you're standing up, that you're walking around, that you're taking breaks, that you're hydrating, and you're listening to your body. Back to the L because we're learning like an artist. We got to listen, empathize with our body. It needs a break. Except that we're the age we are and be present. To this is our moment, right? We gotta be present.
Absolutely.
So I'm gonna continue on. I'm gonna keep using this brush because I likes it. I'm gonna get into my very pink. I'm gonna come above my heart here. Still using the dome blender as you do. Sometimes getting into, you know, like the white or the purple and blending them through. See a kind of curve in shape and flow. Curve and shape and flow. Which is okay. You got a curve and a shape and a flow, and you got to go with the flow. Got to go with the flow. Well, Gadu is strong, and there's very few Gadus in art.
Yeah.
Just making sure that it's like visually interesting. So I just took blue and pink and white and kind of blended that through there, making sure it's visually interesting. Sometimes purple.
Yeah.
Sometimes into the magenta, just letting it blend. And if I need to give it some
It's got to
flow, I can get into that glazing medium, right? I'm not stuck at any point.
So much blending.
Always makes me think of that movie, Blended. Because we're blending. That's like 100% of what I would say that actor if I saw him. I would like sing that song at him badly. And that's like not his most famous role. That's the one where I'm like, I just remember it deeply. Maybe a little purple here, just playing around. That's a lot more red than I wanted, so I'm going to come back with a little bit of white.
All right.
You know, and that'll happen. Sometimes I'll pick up a little more extra color that I want, but I accept that this is where I am today.
Right.
That's that moment, and I'm present in it, and I just roll with it. I don't let it completely stop me from where I'm going. I can always come back with a little bit of white. It's not too hard. And a little bit of glaze. Kind of come up here. I think I might get more blue, like ultramarine blue. I'm curving it around. And then maybe just a little more magenta. And just go right into the purple. So it has a good transition. It's like just to find a color, and like I just grab a little bit of this lighter purple and kind of blend up into here. And
Yeah. I like the purple, the dark purple outer edge.
yeah, it's sort of nice, isn't it? Get a little more ultramarine blue over here. And maybe come down with a little ultramarine blue as well. Just playing with what it is. So now it's just getting much more multi-dimensional, right?
Oh, it really is. Super dimensional.
Super dimensional.
Super dimensional fortress heart.
Super dimensional fortress heart. I'm going to go ahead and use my number 1 just because it gives me a lot of control. And I'm going to thin some just white paint. I'm going to come here and they draw kind of a vertical line. It's okay if the purple is still sort of wet underneath it. It's more about creating a light space for the bright pink. When we get into our very bright, bright, bright pink, doesn't have to be a totally perfect, perfect, perfect heart.
Right.
Now, let's call that a step because I'm going to do a weird thing next and I want you to be able to focus on that. I'm back into my filbert and I'm going to use this to kind of create some interesting patterns in the upper wing. I'm getting it wet. I'm going to rinse it out and I'm going to just come into different colors that I have. And sort of mix and twist in. Go around like I'm grabbing some white, but it's got like the turquoise in it. Try to capture just different, like almost like reflections.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Added some yellow there, kind of peach it up. I'm going to have to line in here, but I find that maybe putting this in is of benefit to me at this stage. So when I come back to line, there's some structure to line around. This also is going to let me kind of create little spaces and chambers. like roots or wings. It could be either, and I want it to feel like it's either.
Right, just organic.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to add some white back up into that, so it's sort of darker at the top. This is a great way for you guys to practice mixing and some value skills. Right, because we're putting those little moments in, putting little episodes in. Gonna take a little bit of my pink and yellow. Put those a few places here. I let it gray out so that the brightest pink is the heart that we've got.
Right.
Going on. All right, look at that starting to sort of shape in and be a moment now. Not everything we paint has to look like something. Sometimes we paint things because it feels like something. And that's what this is about. It feels like something. And there isn't really a right or wrong here.
I like the way this feels.
Yeah.
It's cool. Very purpley.
It is. It's a lot of fun. Lots of weird little shapes. I'm coming with a little more purple. You know, because I want to work that in. And I go ahead and blend that in because it's not all one or the other. I haven't even done any of the lining yet, which just makes such a big, weird difference. And I think I may do black lining up here. Hard to say. Really just wanting to make sure. I'm going to go ahead and get some more water in that, make sure that's flowing out beautifully. You know. Sort of turquoise. But then when it blends into the purple, it sort of changes colors. Just trying to create something super organic. For the next step, we're going to want this to be dry because we're going to go into the lining. So I'm going to make some more of these little viney lines that I was enjoying down here so much. These are all going to be fine lines, so I'll go ahead and use my #1 liner. And I'll go ahead and thin my purple paint again because I just think that's going to look the best. Just the best. Sorry about not knowing.
The fine vine lines.
The fine vine lines. See how I kind of skip there and then I just follow this around. So sometimes here the color can kind of help me find some of my roots.
The color can guide the line.
The color can guide the lines. And yours doesn't have to be exactly like mine.
No two lines follow the same color.
Dude, I wouldn't do this painting the same twice. It would be similar. It would definitely be this painting's really close cousin, identical cousin, you know, kind of thing. But yeah, a Patty Duke referenced right there. Because that's the age we are.
Like, who?
Some of them are who, and some of them are like, oh,
What?
I loved Patty Duke, because that's the weird space Gen X lives in. We annoy every generation equally.
Then there's the
And then they forget about us.
then there's the generation after the generation who's all into it. It's like, oh yeah, no, I've watched all the Patty Dukes and I can tell you all about the different episodes. They're like, they got a convention and they wear
If
identical cousin outfits.
I wouldn't be surprised if that existed. So I'm just trying to break these up and create, a sense of movement and again, organic. I think that's what I'm really going for here.
Yeah. Natural.
Natural. Trying to create a sense of natural. And hopefully you guys enjoy painting along with me this natural piece. Need to get into the fall painting soon. We'll do some weird. I'm in a weird mood lately. I'm gonna let y'all know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you might have noticed the artwork's like kind of, what is going on? But that's just because sometimes that's what you need in your life to be where you are, to work through your stuff. Sometimes you got to work through your stuff.
That's what you gotta do.
Just what you got to do. Trying to create little viney lines down there. Interesting lines. That was a neat line. I will often just look into this and go, what am I seeing? And just try to follow what I'm seeing. Because during the mixing, light or dark areas sort of reveal themselves, and then I outline them, and that kind of gives them shape and purpose and, an idea of what they were like. Which is the other reason why sometimes it's not going to be the same anytime you paint it. And if yours is like mine, but not exactly the same as mine, that's okay. Remember, we got to accept.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You got to accept that all the paintings are not supposed to be exactly alike. Yours is not supposed to be a carbon copy.
Wouldn't want it anyway.
Yeah, you're going to come out in your painting no matter what you do. And the mood that you're currently in is going to come out in your painting no matter what you do. It's really interesting if you design something like I might design on my tablet, right? A bunch of things. I really like SketchUp and Adobe Fresco. So you might design on your tablet and you were in one mood when you did that. And then you come back to take those designs and think about how they'll be a painting and you're a completely different mood. It changes how the painting comes out. So.
This is really cool what you're doing.
Think it's working visually?
It works very cool.
I'm liking it visually quite a lot. Just putting these things there. And again, it just feels like something, doesn't it? It has the implications that it's this, but it's then maybe not this. Trying to. And sometimes the visual knowledge that I have in my brain pan also impacts what's going on here because I painted a lot of butterfly wings or roots or trees. So those things from practice kind of can influence how I decide to do it as well. Kind of got a little whimsical there, as you do. Ooh, that was a lot. And guess what we can do? We can go through and do some of that sort of developing again like we did before. Yeah. So I might take these two, maybe add a little quinacridone magenta so I mix my two pinks and my yellow and a little white. That's fun, right? And again, if you didn't have that pink, it wasn't going to ruin your painting by any means. I think I want to have a lot more white in that, so I'm going to come back with some white and kind of work that out, kind of blend that in. It's still wet, so I can mix right directly on the canvas. And I can even come in and put a couple of these colors a few places. And that really does do something. You know, if you come in and you're like, oh, I add a little bit here and there. In fact, let's come back and do some like little daring tweaking. A little bit of daring tweaking and developing. So now I'm going to kind of look at this. I'm going to listen to my art brain. And see what I feel it needs. This is that fun time. Still on my number one kind of thing. I'm going to get some of my magenta. I like magenta.
I think that may be where I'm going wrong.
Hmm.
I did not get an art brain. I got an art elbow.
No, you got an art brain. He's not telling the truth here. I'm just taking a little pink and yellow. And I'm adding little pops of color here and there. Just to kind of, you know, sometimes you just want to...
The highlights are where it's at.
Yeah, you want to come in and add a little interest. I can even get into like the pure pink. That I have out here. You could use your pure pink. It doesn't have to be exactly my pure pink.
Right.
And you add little pops of color. I'm just using this tiny brush because it gives me a lot of control.
Mm.
Get my glazing medium. That sometimes water can help your paint flow out, but so can the glazing medium. So you could use either. You can see I'm just listening to my artist brain and putting colors here and there.
Yeah.
You might hear you might hear something else. This is one of those places where you can do exactly what I'm doing.
Or
you can play.
You could listen to your art funny bone.
Yes, you could. If you felt like that was a good idea.
I don't know what it would say, but it could say something.
Could say something to you. Got a little purple, so this blends in a little more.
Your art uvula.
My art uvula says, I'm just trying to make sure that there's some chambers that have some personality in them. You want to make sure you got personality. Grab a little white into that magenta. Just shading things out. If I feel something is too much, then come back with a little bit of color. So you have total control here. You can play and play and play and play.
I really like the color combinations you're making in there.
Well, I think it's important to note that, you know, sometimes we are just creating value, light and dark, not just hue. Like if you think about how this is dark, lightening it up around it
Yeah.
is a benefit to us visually.
Because it makes the contrasts.
Because it makes the contrast a little bit. See how that does create a little visual excitement?
It does.
You know, and it's those sort of little finishing touches that can be really, really, really exciting to us.
Sort of visually mezzo forte.
Really? You think so?
Medium loud. It's like purple. It's like I'm loud, but it's just a little loud.
You know, I'm just taking my colors and I'm trying to lighten in some areas and make some interesting, different visual fun. A little bit into the ultramarine. You can see I'm just playing with it. I feel like something needs to happen here, so I'm going to work it here.
All right.
I can always come back pretty easily and fill an area in or reline an area, so there's little risk at this stage.
Mm.
And that's
Just
important.
explore it.
You can just explore it and not be worried about where it's going to take you.
And it's okay for the previous layer to inform the new layer.
That's a good way of putting it. The previous layer can inform the new layer.
They don't have to like be rigid, you know, holders of the line.
They really don't. So if I'm trying to make this more interesting here, right? That's okay for me to do. Take some purple, and because I'm on that Harmony palette, I pick up little colors here on my palette here and there, and it keeps it really nice and lovely for me. There's no going wrong, per se. You can highlight, twist, vine, change, anything.
It is divine.
Yeah, you can divine it or vine it.
Or ultravine it.
Or ultravine it if you must.
And I find that because of our superhero culture, we must maximum adjective everything.
Maximum adjective everything. It does feel like there is kind of a maximum adjective culture, doesn't it? Just adding little bits of line to sort of twist and design. We're almost there, guys. Now you can go on this as long as you want.
So that's an interesting question then. Where is there?
Where is there?
Well, you said we're almost there.
There is when, okay, for me, this is back to listen to that art brain. There is when my art brain begins to calm and stop giving me so many messages.
Ah.
Where it's like, oh, you're okay now. And I feel restful inside. Sometimes I will finish a painting and then look at it later, and my brain has many, many, many opinions that it hadn't had earlier, but now suddenly has.
Mm.
I'm getting some magenta and some purple. So, and get some magenta and some purple and brush in. I just need what I need is my art brain to be shh.
Ah, so you just wait for the art brain to go shh.
That's mine. For some people, it's like that ASMR, like it satisfies something internally. Everybody's really different. Everybody's really different.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things is it takes a while for you to figure out when you feel finished. Right? When do you feel finished? I'm liking this so far, though. I like it actually quite a lot. It has a lot of playfulness in it.
Really does.
I just put a little of this bright pink here. I'm happy. Happy, happy, joy, joy. Happy, happy, joy, joy. Happy, happy, joy, joy. Just kind of making sure I like the line. That forms this sort of inner chamber. And you just look till you're happy. You just go till you're like, oh, that's it. That's what I like. I think we spent a nice little bit of time together and we got to make something sort of different and unexpected. I don't really know how this is going to be received.
It's interesting.
It's interesting. When we come back, I'll tell you what you could do next. So this was a fun little project. I'm going to give this a signature. I'm going to choose a purple that will show on my surface, but not annoy me. Is really what it is. I don't want it to be so bright that it becomes part of the composition. There we go. Now, I think what would be fun, you know what I'd love to do?
What's that?
I'd love to show them to us framed. So do you think we could flicker and come back where I have it? I have a frame and I could put it on there and they can see a frame. That'd be kind of fun.
Magic.
Magic? Magic, magic, magic. Okay, so full candor, I'm house sitting for my mom right now, and my mom always shows her pieces framed at the end. And I kind of like got a wild hair to do that and then created a bunch of work for John.
Like, we're going to do this thing right here at the end where we have to change everything.
But the point of this is to say, this is art. And when you put it in a frame and when you put it on your wall, it looks completely different. Mm-hmm. The reason I use 9x12s is that lets you guys buy ready-made frames or find frames on resale for incredibly low prices. Mm-hmm. So a molding like this could be as little as $15, $12. I have found them in resale for like pennies on the dollar. So 9x12, that's why I do that.
Yeah.
Hopefully you had fun with this unusual and weirder project. I plan to do a bunch more fun, unusual, and weirder projects. So what you need to do is subscribe to the channel so they notify you when a video is released, a live happens, or a premiere happens. Definitely go join the Facebook group, the Art Sherpa Official, so you can share your original painting with us. We are very kind, I promise. Go by the website, theartsherpa.com, and check out all the goodies we have there. Sign up for a free account and say yes to the newsletter, because that will let you know when stuff is going on, or there's a sale happening, or some kind of cool event going on. I definitely don't spam you, but I do tell you what's happening. It's a good way to find out. If you're having any trouble getting your newsletter, write support@theartsherpa.com. We will help you. And also, you can just share in all the places that you can share art. I'm there in all the places, all of the places. So you can share your art with me, and I'm always excited to see it. It's really wonderful. Did you have fun today?
I did.
What did you like about this weird piece?
I like the lining and the colors that came at the end.
That was just a fun little. Sometimes art has to be play. It's okay for art to be play. And look, it's gorgeous in the frame. So it can be play and be serious.
Yes.
All right. You know what's left? They've done all the human things, liked, commented, subscribed. They've done those things.
Yes.
So there's only 2 things left for them to do. Be good to themselves. Be good to yourself. Be good to each other. And I want to see you at an easel really soon. Bye-bye.